The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Back with you. Here we are on a Tuesday. It's Hail Varsity. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, back from Los Angeles. Boy, are your arms tired. Good to have you back, Elijah, at Herbal Essence, where you follow him. Chris Schmidt at Schmidt_radio. And ready to get into it. Turning the page to Wisconsin. Mitch Sherman going to be with us from The Athletic. Mitch in about 15 minutes in hour two. We'll spend some time with Michael Bruntz, Husker 24/7 Sports. Bruntsy will get hour two kicked off, and then Jeremiah Sirles, Papa Sirles, joins us. You're welcome to jump in at 489-1240, 489-1240, 800-825-5865. On the phone lines across the Hail Varsity Radio Network. Always find us on YouTube with Hail Varsity YouTube channel. Like and subscribe there. Hail Varsity Radio Twitter can also watch the show there. And take us with on your time with the podcast, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play when you search Hail Varsity Radio. Straight talk today from Dana Holgorsen. We'll hear from Dana here in a little bit. He had plenty of things to say about Nebraska's running game, his input on personnel. And how about perimeter blocking for the win? A little snippet of that perimeter blocking that we'll have the full comment on. But he laid it out for the guys when he got to town about what they needed to do on the outside.
I thought they blocked well. That's the first thing I challenged them. I was like, guys, I said, you guys are fairly big kids. I know 17's not a big kid, but he's a tough kid. But there's some good-sized kids out there, 16, 18, 4. These guys, 29, these guys are big bodies. I'm like, why are you not blocking worth the crap on the perimeter? It's embarrassing. You got being a receiver, you say, want touches, throw me the ball. First thing I said to him, if you don't start blocking out there, then you're not going to get the ball thrown to you. And this past week, it was our best perimeter blocking of the season. I was very happy with those guys, and they're proud of it, because they worked hard on it for 2 weeks. That's where it starts, and then just details of route running and ball skills. We got guys that can make plays. The problem that we probably ran into last week is not defeating man coverage. USC's very talented in their secondary. Wisconsin's very talented in their secondary. Both are going to play a lot of man. We didn't do a very good job of separation last week. We need to do a better job of that this week for us to be successful against Wisconsin.
Refreshing. Some of us on the airways have been whining about it for quite a while. The perimeter blocking, the horizontal passing, the insanity that has ensued with no block, yet that rock, and a shout out to our friends on their podcast. While guys are still in the ball game, and Nebraska looked different, performed differently, because it was Camp Dana time when he got to town, and a demand was met. We'll see if future demands are met by Nebraska's new OC. How are those cough drops, by the way?
They're good. That is one thing about my trip to LA. I did in fact pick up a bug. I don't feel great. On the bright side, that bug was not the clap, So we're moving forward. The cough drops are keeping things in check, and we're going to keep it going. Can you hear that through the mic?
You're all right.
I do apologize if the cough drop is distracting.
No need for applause on that one, Elijah. Steve is with us to get kicked off here on Hail Varsity. Steve, thanks for calling. Go ahead, bud.
Hi, Chris. How are you today?
Good, man. What do you know?
Good. 2 questions, and then I'll listen to your response. One, what new wrinkle, if any, do you think the Cornhuskers will present to Wisconsin? And number 2, allegedly, the Iowa quarterback has an ankle injury and may or may not be out for the rest of the season. What do you know about that?
Steve, thanks for the phone call. Appreciate it. The new wrinkle I hope to see from Nebraska football will be 40 rushing attempts or more.
Sure. I'm not sure that's a wrinkle.
No, you'll see some more mesh routes probably the more time Dana's had. You got to beat man coverage. You just heard him talk about it. Nebraska needs to find a way to get open. The other wrinkle you'll see is this mystery freshman that apparently's blown him away that he did not name today at the press conference. But why the hell aren't we using the guy? That's my thought bubble, putting it above Dana's head when he's watching practice.
And it should be noted, a guy who was on the travel roster on Saturday, younger wide receiver that wasn't necessarily expected, was Quinn Clark. So you can maybe read in between the lines there. Another name for you, Keelan Smith.
Possibly.
Maybe a guy that has some size on the outside for perimeter blocking.
He does. Carter Nelson.
Could be a wrinkle.
Burnt that shirt. Might as well get him going in the slot.
But how about this in terms of wrinkle?
He likes him some Janarian Bonner.
How about this in terms of wrinkle, though? Who came in and ran the ball pretty well on Saturday? Had a little bit of dynamism to his game whenever he came in.
Oh, you mean Emmett?
That's one. I was thinking more Heinrich Harburg.
Yeah, sure.
That was a guy, upon my rewatch, that I thought felt still slightly underutilized. I mean, comes in and picks you up a first down on 1st and 10 and then goes straight to the bench.
7.5 a carry?
Yeah, that's a guy that I wonder if he has a little bit of a bigger piece of the game plan on Saturday, especially with, November weather in Nebraska.
Do you know something?
Do I know something? No. Do I have eyes and see that he came on the field and moved the ball?
We've all got eyes. Not all of us, but some of us.
Most of us.
Not the poor dealer at the blackjack table we were at Friday night. Speaking of Ameristar, he had an eye patch on.
Oh, I didn't hear this.
Oh, yeah. And one of the guys sitting three stools down from us was firing up a heater. And, as the guy getting pummeled by said dealer, he's like, how'd you lose that? Because, of course, you want to walk up to a complete stranger wearing an eye patch and ask him, how'd you lose it? As he's taking your money hand over fist with consecutive 20s or 17s or blackjacks. He's like, you won't believe me if I tell you. And the guy 3 stools down said, try me. He's like, you ever see A Christmas Story?
No.
Yeah.
No.
BB gun, 12 years old.
Oh, that's tough.
Let that be a lesson this holiday season. I'm not making that up. That's a true story. Back to Steve-O. When it comes to Iowa's quarterback, Sullivan, if he's got an ankle injury, too bad for him, too bad for this Iowa offense, not bad for Nebraska.
Yeah, no, I will say, let's worry about Iowa and their quarterback situation next week. I say that collectively as everybody who watches Nebraska football. Don't need to look too far ahead with that because it could potentially be McNamara on the field. I know that Kirk Ferentz did say today that their third stringer.
He was MIA.
Well, Kirk Ferentz said today that Jackson Stratton would be their starting quarterback. Kind of feels like McNamara's status is unclear. Is that Kirk Ferentz playing mind games? Who knows? I don't know.
Well, McNamara's probably packed the U-Haul and gotten out of Iowa City because you get demoted. That's what you do. In today's college football.
But yeah, back to my original point.
Makai Nelson, a little birdie tweeting in to us about is a back you could maybe think about on Saturday against Wisconsin as well. Rule mentioned him, and Dana might be alluding to that mystery man. So time will tell. We'll hear from Dana, get our starting 5 shout-outs going as well. But pretty much a blunt assessment by a guy that's nothing but blunt, comes from the Mike Leach school of being blunt, and that's okay. You need it. And what today told me, and this is my little brain reading into it, is you've got guys on offense that just keep on doing the same old thing, whether it be so-so perimeter blocking or so-so guys running into the line, but maybe not trusting the offensive line. Like Sat caught hell for not running the football more, right? There was not a lot of trust for Sat to run the football because, well, running backs didn't always trust where the hole was going to be, or if there was a hole there, they're going to the wrong one. They're going to the one that's not open at times. And Dana is not here to make friends. He's here to make $67,000 per month. He's here to lead this offense. And to me, you've got a bunch of guys on offense that either it fell on deaf ears or just really never got a kick in the ass by their position coaches or their coordinator. I mean, you're the coach, you command the playing time, and you never really saw that change. You saw guys go in and some disappear, but it wasn't for lack of effort or playing time. I mean, there's no reason that Lloyd shouldn't be seeing more time on the field based on his production on Saturdays when he does get in the ball games. Don't see what Monday through Friday looks like, but I can't imagine him not being a really good practice guy either. So, yeah, you got guys that in a side of the football that needed the kick in the backside, and Dana's here to do that and chew bubble gum, perhaps.
And drink Red Bull.
So that's, to me, you've got a guy that's not going to put up with any BS. He's barking orders. He's barking orders to position coaches. He's barking orders to players.
And this is kind of along the lines of something Will Compton tweeted earlier today. I also don't think Holgorsen would get up in front of the media and say something like that unless
it's already been delivered.
It's already been delivered behind the scenes. And like Dana's type of guy, he's been around the block, both as a head coach and offensive coordinator. He knows what types of guys he wants to be playing on his offense. And by getting up and saying it's personally embarrassing, the type of guys that Dana wants to play for him, take that personally and get better from it. They don't go pout.
Or they don't play.
That's what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Is I think this is a part of the weeding out process for Dana in terms of who do I want to see on the football field on Saturdays. Hey, I'm going to go say I'm personally embarrassed by the perimeter blocking of these wide receivers. I'm going to see who responds. I think that's Dana with a little bit of button pushing and seeing, who wants to play for me.
Uncle Larry in first, the starting five. Justin in second. NU Grandpa back at it. He is third. And he says, I've recovered, says NU Grandpa, looking forward to Saturday. Arlo is in, says, I turned down free tickets to the game. Never thought I'd do this, but I get to the point in life. Here we are. The chilly forecast did play a factor into my decision. Mr. Jeff Snitley in, part of the Boulder Peace Treaty. Good to have him. Real Matthew is here. Says, I liked what I heard from Dana. We're going to hear plenty more. Great Red Shark is in for International Holgo Coming Out Day. Mike is here from California, wondering what week 2 will look like under the new OC. Same here. Jeff is in, says, hello, fellas. Brennan from the Black Hills checks in and says, look, Dana's not here to make friends. He's here to win. He'll hurt some feelings along the way, which might be just what the doctor ordered. Mud Flaps is here. Says, I'm in and really liked the presser today. GBR. Tuck is in. Well, did Elijah make it out of Denver? I think it's time we talk Illinois beating Ohio State this weekend.
Indiana?
Well, he said Illinois, I think.
He's referring to Indiana, I'd assume?
I think so, yeah. Tuck, I know what you're saying, though. You're talking about the other I state. JB is my dad is here. Captain is in as well. NASCAR Eric checking in. Good to have you, NASCAR Eric. Captain asked the question, I wonder how many people in the chat have seen Nebraska Cornhuskers win a championship in football. Captain, I am raising my hand, was at the last one. Anonymous here. It's time they man up and just go out and get it done this weekend. There's no excuse to keep underperforming like this. Elijah, I want to ask you this. We'll get to more Dana coming up. I promise you that. Mitch Sherman 5 minutes away. You were around the 15 to 20,000 that spent thousands to go out during the middle of November. Little family vacay, little Husker family reunion. You have murmurs. You have unhappiness. That's a real thing in Wisconsin with Luke Fickell. You were around Nebraska fans. You were in the thick of it. You were shotgunning beers with Nebraska fans because you're a man of the people.
That was your fault.
Well, it was my fault, but I couldn't be there to do it for you or with you. So I asked this question. What do you think the feel is? What's the vocal minority? What's the popular opinion right now on Matt Rule? I think he's a great communicator. I think he's a good builder. I think he's underperformed when it comes to wins and losses. I think he's right about the breakthrough, and I think he did something about that to help push it through, as he talks about, and that's going and getting Dana, right? Tony White's good. Tony White today said I need to be better, especially with in-game adjustments. Agreed. So Nebraska has underperformed when it comes to some of those close ones got to go your way. What's your feel? What's the feedback you got on a impromptu man on the street or bumping shoulders or spilling beer moment?
Well, I got a bit of a unique perspective here because, as you know, following the end of the game, found myself a spot outside the stadium, hopped on the post-game show, and very shortly after that, my phone died. Did not have my phone back in operation until Sunday, essentially, whenever we hopped on for our recording of the Average Joe Sports Show. Didn't really get a chance to check all the social media of all the reaction up until about Sunday afternoon. I was surprised to see how much anger there was out there. Disappointment, I understand. I said that post-game. I was disappointed but not dejected. I still feel the same way about that team. In the micro, there was things that were better offensively. In the macro, it still wasn't better. I was surprised to see how much anger there was specifically directed at Matt Rule following that performance. Mm-hmm. Like, maybe it's just me. The people I talked to in LA, the people I talked to in the airport yesterday, there wasn't anger. Disappointment abounded. People were disappointed that they spent their money to go out to LA and see a loss. People are disappointed by the 5-game losing streak. I didn't sense a whole lot of anger, like, oh, it's time for Matt Rule to go. I think people are just like, you know what? This season hasn't been what we wanted. It's not great. Wish I didn't spend my money on this LA trip. I think there's still a bit of a runway for Matt Rule, understanding he still hasn't had the time to get his guys ready to go.
Well, Mitch Sherman's on the way.
It's that time.
Psst. Hey, Mitch. Mitchie. We're looking for you, pal.
Mitch Sherman from The Athletic, talking Big Red.
Unleash the fury, Mitch.
Unleash the fury!
On Hail Varsity Radio.
Mitch Sherman is here from The Athletic, at Mitch Sherman on Twitter, where you follow him. And, of course, read him with The Athletic and Locked on Nebraska podcast. Be sure to catch that every morning. Mitch, how we doing? Thanks for the time, man.
Doing well. How are you, Schmitty?
We're good. We are good. A lot of emails over the weekend and into this week as a lot of our listeners and viewers are not happy with Nebraska 5-5. A lot of high stress against Wisconsin. Welcome to November. And I was talking to Elijah, who was out in L.A., and Mitch, you travel for all the road games as well. And just the amount of angst right now, or frustration level out of 10, what's your feel right now going into these final 2 weeks with Nebraska fans that you've either interacted with or your readers or listeners?
Yeah, it's fairly high. Out of 10, I think the angst level is like an 8 right now. I didn't necessarily get that vibe in the Coliseum as the fans were exiting. It was almost like people had just accepted it. I think that game just taken on its own, if you weren't putting it within the context of all that's happened in Nebraska football over the last several years, you would look at that and just say, wow. I mean, think about the things that happened to Nebraska in that game, the balls that bounced off defenders into receivers' hands for touchdowns, and, more sketchy officiating at the end in particular. There were other plays, I think, that people were upset about. Really, for Nebraska, like, it just didn't feel any different. Like, it had the potential to be a game where you looked at it at the end and said, I can't believe that happened. But we're at a point in watching Nebraska where you can believe it happened. And it just seems like, well, that's another day. So that's the main takeaway that I had walking out of that stadium, is it didn't even seem any different, which is bizarre because of how absurd a few things were that happened in that game that allowed Nebraska to lose 28-20.
It's one of the things on my mind. I don't quite feel, at least from my conversations outside the stadium, conversations in the airport, I don't necessarily feel
conversations at the bar.
Yeah, I don't feel the anger that I'm seeing across a lot of social media posts directed generally at the football program and their performance. What's your take on the anger of Husker Nation? Do you think it's there? Because there's disappointment, there's angst with the final 2 games, but it doesn't feel like that same anger you felt after, say, Nebraska's loss to Georgia Southern that finally put the nail in the coffin of Scott Frost.
No, that was definitely different. There have been other games, like the Ireland game was definitely different. Nebraska's played some, like the Illinois game a few years ago that opened the season in sad fashion in Champaign was definitely different. Others, even the Minnesota game last year wasn't anger. The Colorado game last year wasn't anger. But I know what you're saying, Elijah. I mean, it was a different vibe. Maybe it's a California thing. Maybe it was a different subset of fans. Maybe you're dealing with a lot of fans who see Nebraska once a year when they come to the West Coast. But there were certainly a lot of traveling fans too. You know, my flights out to Southern California were filled with Nebraska fans, and I didn't get the vibe from them either that it was like they're at the end of their wit. No, it was almost more like, this is who we are. It's acceptance. It's sadness. It's you have to believe what you see that's right in front of you, and it's undeniable right now that if it can go wrong with Nebraska, it is going to go wrong. That's about how that game played out on Saturday. So weird spot for sure. Not necessarily a feeling that I've picked up on in the past from Nebraska fans, and but yeah, as you go through social media, it's different. I mean, people are more demonstrative and more angry in that medium for sure.
Great Red Shark chimes into the stream. We're on the same page, frustrated, sick of it, but also know that firing your way out of more mediocrity isn't the answer right now. 3 years from now might be a different story. That's one viewer and listener in the stream. Mitch, new set of eyes with Dana Holgorsen. Offense had better flow, needs more points, and Dana was pretty, I don't want to say pointed in a mean-spirited way, but was really matter of fact today with what needs to be better on offense. What do you think of the unveiling of Dana Holgorsen today?
Yeah, I think that's just Holgorsen. That's him, and I've seen him before in a different venue, obviously, but I've seen him as a head coach and been around him at Big 12 Media Days in the past, and that's it right there. Like, we got the Dana Holgorsen, the real Dana Holgorsen on in his first appearance in front of the media in Nebraska. Like, if he's gonna call it how he sees it. It's a contrast from Matt Rule, and it isn't that Matt Rule. It isn't that he won't call it as he sees it, but Matt Rule's very calculated, and he even says this stuff out loud sometimes. He says, I have to be careful about everything that I say. Like, we've heard him say that on multiple occasions this year. He talked about that after the Ohio State game. Talked about it a little bit yesterday in coming off of USC and going into the Wisconsin game. He's very aware of how his words impact people. And with Holgorsen, it's what you see is what you get. I don't know that there is that same kind of calculation. And if there is, he just doesn't care if his criticism might rub someone the wrong way. Like, it's a different style of leadership for sure, but his results speak for themselves. I mean, yeah, he ended up getting fired at Houston last year, and it didn't end well, but he's been a successful head coach and a very successful offensive coordinator. Players want to play for him. They do play for him. They perform for him. So you put those two styles together, and if this thing lasts more than the next couple weeks, it'll be interesting to watch and see how Rule and Holgorsen coexist. Sometimes it takes two kind of opposite personalities to make something work, or at least that's a scenario in which you can find yourself thriving, as opposed to having everyone on the same page with the way they go about their operations. And that's the direction that Nebraska's headed. If Dana chooses to stick around in 2025.
Mitch Sherman's with us here, and Mitch, whenever you consider what was said at the presser today, combine that with what we saw on Saturday, which I'd describe as, in the micro, some things were different, some things looked better. In the macro, you only scored 13 points, and you could argue 10 because the defense really set you up for that one field goal where you couldn't capitalize on great field position. So in the macro, the offensive performance wasn't better. I want your thoughts on what's possible over the final two games of this season. Do you think that changes in the micro, if the macro of the offense remains the same, is enough to get you over the hump, to get you to a bowl game, considering the two opponents you have left?
It's possible, for sure. Yeah, I mean, Nebraska's not playing Ohio State and Oregon over the next 2 weeks. So we know about Wisconsin and Iowa. They're tough, physical teams that won't quit. They're going to do what it takes to win. Certainly Iowa is a team that's going to do the little things right. This version of Wisconsin has not been as good at that this year, but it's also a Wisconsin team that took Penn State to the wire, that took Oregon to the wire, that played tough at USC when I think USC was rolling better than what's going on right now. It wasn't a great second half for Wisconsin out there in LA, but the first half was good. They've shown the ability, much like Nebraska, to play well in stretches and maybe in longer stretches than what Nebraska has shown since about week 2. So it's a challenge, but yeah, I think Nebraska can make enough changes in the micro, as you say, Elijah, to get a victory here. Like, it's not out of reach for Nebraska to win one or even both of these games. The second one will be harder. It's against a team that has played better this year than Wisconsin. Iowa has played better, and then you're at night at Kinnick on Black Friday. That's going to be a difficult venue. It'll be a friendly venue on Saturday for the Huskers, though.
Let's talk about Saturday, Mitch, before we get you out. Mitch Sherman with us from The Athletic, Locked On Nebraska podcast, at Mitch Sherman on Twitter. It's where you follow him. Saturday, Senior Day, 2:30, emotion, plenty with these guys who've come back for year 5, year 6. You got a young core of guys that want to presumably send these seniors out the right way. You know, how does Nebraska get it done? Is it through the air? Do they get better at the ground? Does the defense respond? A tough day against the run last Saturday against SC. You know, do some math for me here on how Nebraska gets to that number 6.
It's going to have to play smart football. And, there were lots of examples on Saturday at USC where that didn't happen. Some of the stuff that's been talked about the last 2 days as the coaches and players have been in front of the media. And I'm thinking about the defensive side where Nebraska was playing 2 different coverages at the same time. And then, other things on defense where it's failing to come up with turnovers and situations where the ball was right there for them. That's got to be better. I think in that conversation we can put too much on the defense. It's the offense needs to do more too. And the defense in this, by and large, under Matt Rule, has been the one that has won football games. Nebraska's yet to win a football game when it's given up more than 14 points under Matt Rule. All 10 of its victories, it's 14 points or fewer. So it's a better way to put it. But they just have to play smart. They can't turn it over. Got to be able to run the ball. It's Big Ten in November. Got to be able to stop the run. And don't make silly mistakes that we've seen on repeat too often during this 4-game losing streak.
Mitch, about 30 seconds here. Your thoughts on the drought against Wisconsin? I've done some math here. Is it hard to believe that Dylan Raiola was in first grade the last time Nebraska beat Wisconsin?
Put like that, yeah, it's hard to believe. But 12 years will do that. Like so many of the other statistical anomalies that exist for this Nebraska football program, that one is right up there with the 1-score losses, with the last 2-minute drives, with the ranked opponents. The Wisconsin series is a doozy for sure.
Mitch, we'll see you on Saturday, bud. Appreciate your time.
Okay, thanks, guys.
All right, there he is. So, first grade, was that still nap time and juice box?
No, but you still got recess.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back into it. It's Hail Varsity. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. More emails we'll get to. Todd, just paraphrasing Todd's email, in Chris at HailVarsity.com, and always enjoy reading Todd's emails. He says, now that's how a HC should sound. Do your bleeping job or give your paycheck back. No more kids' gloves, horse bleep. When he's talking about Dana. We'll get into Dana. But as far as the aggravation level, it's past 5. It's at 9 for some of you. It's at 6 for others. A couple of emails we got in. I sent you as well, Elijah. And Dion had a comment, too, in the stream where it's this draining way to lose ball games has ticked off and ruined the year, right? Because you're hoping for great things in year 2. It can still be okay, and this isn't me blowing sunshine where. You win Saturday, you feel good, and the situations Iowa is in with their offense, it's a far cry from the, I will say, juggernaut. I mean, Iowa's put up 40 points 4 times this year. If you don't stop the run, they're going to do it again, but that's Nebraska's got to figure that out, clearly, against some of the better running teams. But I'm not as frightened for Nebraska against the Iowa quarterback, whoever it is, compared to what Sullivan could do, throwing the ball and keeping plays alive. But we'll hear from Holgorsen here. And the bigger picture with the Big Ten, and this was a good tweet. We just ran out of time to talk to Mitch about it. We'll talk to Barry Alvarez tomorrow about it. But how do you view the Big Ten here as we're an hour and a half away from the 3.0 version of the college football playoff seeding projection? Do you give credit to the Big Ten with a slew of 5-5 teams? If USC's a team that's a 3-win team in the league, a 5-5 team overall, same with Michigan. Washington stuck right in there, so you're middle class or last tier. I mean, Nebraska's your 14th ranked team in the Big Ten. The record says it. I think it's a dog-eat-dog league. But I also look at the SEC, where Florida is getting a lot better. LSU is fading. Ole Miss is pretty good. Georgia's on the verge of being left out a second straight year, but I think they could beat anybody on a given Saturday. And then what do you do with Indiana? They lose by a field goal. Okay, really the only team they've played all year. Do you give them credit? Because their body of work, not their fault, but their reality, has them at a 102 strength of schedule. Best win they have is over Nebraska, and they destroyed Nebraska. I think Indiana's a good team. I don't think they are playoff worthy over an Ole Miss. I don't think they're playoff worthy over Alabama or Tennessee. And I'm sorry, I'm not Mr. SEC pom-pom guy. I just know what I've seen. Now, their margin of error shouldn't be awful if they go 11-1 and don't have to get into a conference title game, Elijah. I mean, Oregon's incredible. Ohio State, when they want to play ball, they're big time. Penn State's a yes, sir. They're a team that gets in my opinion, if they handle their business. And then there's Indiana. The SEC, I don't think a 3-loss SEC team should jump Indiana, unless it's Georgia. Is that too waffly? I'm sorry. But Nebraska is kind of our focus right now, though, with Wisconsin coming up. But the bigger picture of college football fans are interested for sure.
Well, the reality of the situation right now, just in the Big Ten as a whole, is you have your elite teams, your teams that are vying for a college football playoff.
You have 5 ranked, 4 in the top 5.
Yeah, say 4 of them realistically have a real shot at making the playoff. Oregon, Indiana, Ohio State, Penn State. In 5th place in the Big Ten right now, you have Illinois at 7-3, who I don't think has a shot at the playoff.
Nope, they don't.
And then you go to Iowa at number 6. They're at 6-4. Your 17th place team in the conference, Maryland's at 4-6.
Who beat USC? Who beat LSU?
Yeah, I mean that's the reality of just the parity in the Big Ten right now. Mm-hmm. Is there's 2 games separating your 6th place team and your 17th place team. It's the reality. Does the losing streak Nebraska's on doesn't inspire much confidence that you're going to get it done over the final 2 weeks, but it's just the reality of the conference right now. It's week to week. That's why I think you walk out of Saturday feeling disappointed, because you had that game in a position to go win, but I don't think it makes me think, well, it's nail in the coffin. Nebraska's not going to win the final two. There's the PTSD of Husker fans, and there's the reality of the team right now. I mean, I think that's why I love Dylan Raiola with the quote, going to go out there and get bowl eligible next week. That's what the team needs right now. It's a dose of confidence because there's none in the fan base, but the fan base matters a little bit. What matters is the mood inside the team. And right now, the reality of the Big Ten is it's any given Saturday for about anyone but 4 teams in the conference. Oh, 5 if you include Purdue.
Well, and that quote was Dylan after the ball game. All right, it was, and I got that wrong yesterday with what On3 had posted. Yeah. It was just, and we heard his post game. We ran it Saturday, and nothing jumped out like, he's going Joe Willie. So the headline's different than the sound.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
But it's, hey, your quarterback wants to get up and say he thinks they're getting bowl eligible next week.
And he said when we go bowling today.
The team needs that kind of confidence. So
yeah. I mean, well, I don't know if we're going to go get it done. You can't have that. Charles.
Well, that's seemingly been the mindset of this team for about 5 years now.
I know. Charles did email in, I'm sick of being a Husker fan, expecting a different outcome every week, season, when the same crap is put on the field. Why can't we have success? CU or Indiana is finding. We have better facilities, better NIL, the way better fan support, 400 consecutive sellouts, and this is what we get every single week, every season. Enough's enough. Charles, many feel your pain, but you're not jumping off the bandwagon. Nate emailed in, can we talk a minute and take a minute to talk about a few things? All the focus is in on the offense, with Holgorsen. And Nate writes, we really need to talk about 2 things. First, Tony White. He gets all the praise, pomp, and circumstance, but let's face it, his defense has been a big issue on this 4-game losing streak. Nebraska can't get off the field when they need to. Outside of Ty Robinson and Sierra Wright, no one's stepping up to make plays, which leads me to the second point. Arizona State, Colorado, Indiana, just to name a few, use the transfer portal to their advantage. Believe me, I'm all for development, but I'm tired of hearing about all the NFL guys on our roster. ISU, ASU, Indiana didn't have NFL guys all over the place. They just have guys who win. We don't need an NFL player. Kind of disagree with that. You need a guy that may not be an NFL guy that turns into an NFL guy, because I think Iowa State, Arizona State, Colorado will have guys that get looked at because they're on winning teams. Husker fans don't care or need that. They just want players who want to win. I just don't get the lack of desire to win. I was on full display Saturday. USC doesn't have a ton of NFL guys, but they have guys who want to win. Same with Kansas, same with Arizona State, same with Colorado, same with Indiana. Something's got to change, and if that means to clean house defensively, then do it. Nate, defense needs to be better against the run. There needs to be better communication. They're the reason you've won anything the last year and a half.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks for hanging out, Hail Varsity, with you on a Tuesday. Find the podcast, search Hail Varsity Radio, like, subscribe, and give us some feedback, a rating. Appreciate that. Hail Varsity YouTube, also where you can watch the show and like and subscribe there. Sneak in a little more Dana Holgorsen from today. We'll have plenty more next hour. Jeremiah Sirles joins us. Also, Michael Bruntz in about 10 minutes or so. So you had Dana asked about the run game and what can happen Saturday and moving forward with Nebraska on the ground.
Before we get there, I do just want to say there may have been an Elijah Herbel screw-up here where we came back a little bit early from break, but we now line back up with our affiliates now. So we welcome you into a segment of Hail Varsity Radio.
Fine. Yeah,
we may have started early.
We're back at it, as we wind down this first hour. But back to Dana Holgorsen and thoughts on the run game.
I thought we ran block well on Saturday. They say it's the O-line's best game up front. I thought we played well up front. I can't gauge it on what happened in the first 9 games, but I was pleasantly surprised with our pad level, our toughness, assignment-wise being good. I thought we had, a couple of runs that were good, tough runs that got good, tough yards. But, I know Coach Rule mentioned it yesterday. There was a lot of yards left out there. When I can push the back and there's a hole like this, and the back's not in it, it's discouraging, and so got to get those guys to open their eyes and trust the blocks and hit it. I thought at halftime, I told the running back coach, I was like, they need to hit that thing better because there are some holes there, it is what it is. You get it up to the second level, we need to get some backs that can make some guys miss in open field. Some of those tackles that USC had are hard tackles, and they made them. I was pleased with the scheme. I was pleased with what it looked like. We have to get more production. We do have to get more production.
That's encouraging for the loud chant of run the football. 2, the fact that guys got to hit it, and you saw downhill running, especially that opening drive for Nebraska. You saw Emmett. You need to see more Emmett. And if Dowdell or other backs can't run to the appropriate hole, maybe it sounds like you're going to see less of them. We'll hear more from Dana about assistant coaches, position coaches, kind of falling in love with guys, and other guys maybe not getting their time. I'm paraphrasing here, but as good as – and Dowdell's a specimen. He's got elite speed. He's a bruiser. If you can add a little make you miss to him, sky's the limit for that guy. And he's a young back. This is just his second year. He had, 10, 15 carries at Oregon and then hit the portal. Dowdell's got so much upside. I get it, but he's just got to be better vision-wise, and that's not a new take.
And this is not Elijah Herbel trying to give you a dose of hopium, but it is, there's, yeah, you like that? There is a reality to what I'm seeing right now with Holgorsen coming in. From things he said in the press conference, from what I saw on Saturday, he's targeted the things the Husker fans have been calling for all year long. For perimeter blocking, Riley getting the ball out a little bit quicker, running backs seeing the hole, hitting it, making a man miss once you're in the hole. It's all things Husker fans have been saying all year long.
Been saying for a season.
The question is what can get fixed in the next 2 games? That's the question. Because whenever you look at close losses, this is just in general across a lot of sports, but football definitely falls under it. Like, close losses happen because of tiny little things. Mm-hmm. You lose those close games or you win those close games because a tiny little thing breaks your way or you make a play here or there. Look at the strip sack that turns into a USC first down en route to a touchdown. That's a little thing that you're just a little bit away from. But to get back to what Holgorsen says here, if Dowdell breaks one, I think it was in the third quarter, breaks a tackle, he was home free, it was one-on-one with the safety, you have a touchdown, it's a different football game. So it's little things that Holgorsen's coming in trying to get cleaned up, but it's the little things we've been calling for all year long.
Well, and you need different personalities on your coaching staff. And you might need a henchman. You can be the overseer, the planner, the CEO, but you need a hitman. And I'm not saying Dana's a hitman, but Dana has zero filter with his opinion. He'll give it, and then he'll demand it. And that is sorely needed on the offensive side of the football because you can't be friends. You got to be the boss.
The question is just how many little things can you get cleaned up between now and Black Friday?
Enough.
It's $1 million question.
Think of Jano's run. He broke a tackle.
The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Back with you at Tower 2. It's Hail Varsity. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, Hail Varsity YouTube, Hail Varsity Radio Twitter, and, of course, the Hail Varsity Radio Network. I know it is Wisconsin week, but I'm chuckling here on Logan Jones, Iowa Center. Was talked and asked about the quarterback turnover with the Hawkeyes. And good old Logan, being real, we'll have this audio for you next week. But he says, you know what? Quote, the only different thing is when they get under center, what it feels like. The other quarterbacks aren't going to like this, but old Stratton, he feels good under there.
It's a reality. As a former center, it's a reality.
He may be related to Eric Stratton, damn glad to meet you.
It's not in a weird way, but there is a right amount of force that the quarterback needs to have under center, and that sounds bad. But you got to know where that hand is while also not being like uncomfortably being pushed on your rear end.
Right. Michael Bruntz joins us here.
What a way to transition into Bruntsy.
on Hail Varsity Radio. Michael Bruntz never played center. Bruntsy, did you play quarterback ever?
I did not. I have no hot takes on the center quarterback exchange that you guys are discussing there.
that tone says change the subject, Bruntsy.
I'm willing to take your word for it, though, Elijah. So
I'll try to avoid getting into any inside the NBA escalarity.
We don't need any.
It is important to know where that hand is. Okay, that's. I'll leave it at that. If you don't know where it is, fumbled snaps tend to happen.
Right, it's about execution.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right, Michael Bruntz.
No Moon River. Yeah.
You're right. Yeah. Ever serve time? What a great scene. That's such a good scene. Fletch, right?
Yes.
So Bruntsy, at Michael Bruntz on Twitter, Husker 24/7 Sports. You were out in L.A. soaking a beer while we were talking to your compatriot, BC, Brian Christopherson. So we waved at you from Ameristar. Elijah waved at you from a parking lot near a beach last Friday. It's wonderful to fast forward to now. And I'm going to get your immediate reaction on one Dana Holgorsen. Is Dana a guy that probably doesn't get Christmas cards, or do you think maybe he's the truth serum that guys come to appreciate for playing for him?
Yeah, I'm sure there's probably a very type of player that really responds well to Dana Holgorsen. Definitely not going to mince words. He's not going to, you're never not going to know where you stand with him, I think, is probably the best way to put it. But, from his discussion today, it sounds like, he was pretty honest with wide receivers about why blocking wasn't working on the outside. That got better against USC than it had been. Some frank words for the running backs at halftime to find the holes that were there. And that's been something that I think has kind of been there at times this year too. I mean, the creases have been there if you can find them or hit cutback lanes. And so, I think that's the power in kind of being able to come in as an outsider and say, that's fine how you've been doing things, but I'm in charge, and this is how we're doing things now. So I think there's benefit to that. I'm curious to see what that looks like after another week of practice and kind of getting used to Nebraska's personnel. But I don't know. I don't know if you guys feel this way, but you can kind of tell, I think, when somebody's been a head coach, and that comes across very quickly when you listen to him talk. Like, this is a guy that's been in the chair before. He understands how you have to talk, what you have to do, what it has to look like. And I think that was a big takeaway for me. It was like, oh, yeah, duh. This guy has been through it a few times, and that came across pretty quickly.
And one of the things I think you also have with that experience is you kind of understand what a team may need in a given moment in the season. And my feel from the presser today, Bruntz, we talked about, to lead off this interview, the feel on the backside from a center and a quarterback, the proper exchange. Is the feel or the thing that Nebraska needs right now is a spark on that backside? Is that what Dana Holgorsen's bringing in? Did you get that feel from the press conference?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little bit of a spark. It's just maybe a different way of looking at things. I think sometimes when you get to this point in the season, and it probably feels a little bit like you kind of know what's going on, right? Like kind of what the book is on certain guys and personnel and what they do well and what they don't. And you've got this guy coming in from the outside that's completely unaffiliated with anything that's happened previously and saying maybe, okay, if we put this guy in this situation, let's see how he does. I mean, Janarian Bonner is a good example of that from the game on Saturday of, this guy's played fullback. He's been a slot wide receiver. He was, featured, then he wasn't, and now he's back again. And I think sometimes that could be that spark you're talking about. And, I think also it allows you to maybe, have somebody that's kind of able to take a wider view of things and say, look, like let's do more of this and less of this because it seems to be working. So, yeah, I think there's probably a little bit of energy that comes along with that, and a little bit of newness that might give you a little bit of energy when you've kind of you've been beaten up and just playing a really physical sport for the last 3 months and going back to, heck, even winter conditioning and spring ball. I mean, it's a long year, and, a little bit of energy is not a bad thing.
Michael Bruntz with us, Husker 24/7 Sports, and find Bruntsy on Twitter at Michael Bruntz. Talking Dana Holgorsen's meeting with the media today. We'll hear more from Coach Dana after Sirles next segment. And you say spark, I say kick in the backside, because that's what the offense needs. Defense needs to firm up against the run. They'll have a chance to do that the next 2 weeks, Bruntsy. But overall, the magnitude of these next two, and we've been in this situation before last year and in previous years to get to number 6 or beyond. And then you got Troy Dannon last night on the Husker Network talking about needing 6. And I've got to go raise, he didn't put a number on it, I'm going to put a number on it, $100 million for that South Stadium project. It's a lot easier to get a phone call, take a phone call, and send a check, isn't it, when you get bowl eligible or you're ending on an upbeat season? I mean, it's been forever, man. It's been forever since you've ended November going into a bowl season with some momentum. Even that 5-7 season, you at least played Iowa tough. I forgot who they beat. Michigan State. They beat Michigan State. This is year 1 of Riley. And then you go whack UCLA. I mean, that was the last time you had some actual momentum from November into the new year.
Yeah, it's been hard to come by. You just look at what Nebraska's record has been against Wisconsin and Iowa since they joined the Big Ten, and I mean that's a big, kind of tells the tale, I guess, of what the last decade and a half have been like for Nebraska football. So, you want the momentum. I mean, if you're, talking about kind of getting a head start on what 2025 will be, I mean, just imagine another 12 practices for Dana Holgorsen and that offense going into next season. I mean, that's like, think about it. You basically have lost out on essentially 8 spring balls that you haven't had because you haven't been able to make a bowl game. I mean, there has to be a cumulative effect of that. And momentum's important for this coaching staff. You mentioned the Dannon thing, which, I mean, that's a big piece of it. I mean, if we were still going to be getting the Trev Alberts plan on what you're going to do to Memorial Stadium, I mean, that would be a tremendously difficult ask if you're going to people and asking for that kind of money and you're struggling to make bowl games. So there's a lot riding on this. And, I mean, you've got what I would consider a fairly wounded Wisconsin team coming in to Lincoln on Saturday with apparently an offensive coordinator by committee approach. And that this is the game that you have to get. I mean, UCLA was kind of that way, and Nebraska, I think, looked past UCLA. And this program is just not in the place right now where you can afford to do that. So this is a big one. And then you add in kind of the emotion of Senior Day where you're going to have 30-plus guys playing their last games in Memorial Stadium. So it's Saturday's a big day for this program.
It's Michael Bruntz with us here, Hail Varsity Radio. And Bruntz, do you have reason to believe that the officials won't be a factor on Saturday?
Oh, no.
Well, I mean, if there's one thing you can count on, it's, Wisconsin being called for holding. So I'm sure that won't be a problem whatsoever on Saturday. But, yeah, I mean, it's kind of been they got to get that handled. Anyways, I didn't mean to cut you off. But, yeah, they I'm sure Wisconsin will have to go out of their way to get called for a hold in this game.
When's the last time they got called for holding against Nebraska, or have they ever?
I think there was one year, and it was like it was like there was like a stat where it was like the first time in like half a decade where they've been called for one against Nebraska. Like it's a joke, but there's some truth behind it too.
How have your readers and listeners to the Hypecast reacted to the continual guessing game on back to Moon River? How it's going to feel for Nebraska at some point during the game because of the Zebras?
Yeah, I mean it's you almost kind of come to expect it now. I mean I thought Troy Dannon was pretty fair last night in his answer about it. Like, I get one thing if it's a judgment call. Obvious judgment calls need to be made, I think, with more frequency. But when you're having issues just spotting the ball, and it happened at least once against USC even, where it was like not even close to where it needed to be. So I don't know. I mean, Nebraska's done the squeaky wheel approach. I think Troy Dannon has definitely hammered things behind the scenes too. But the league's got to get a better handle on that because Nebraska is not alone in dealing with those issues.
It's Michael Bruntz with us here, Hail Varsity Radio. And Bruntz, as we move on from officiating, I think all you can do if you're a Husker fan is to cross your fingers, hope for the best, and hope it doesn't come in a big moment as it has.
If they get hosed at home and they don't go bowling again, this place is going to riot Saturday.
Yeah.
If there's a Husker in the end zone that gets tackled at the goal line, because that tends to happen in overtime against Wisconsin, the last two. They're going to lose their mind. If you've got a 6'4" wideout that can't get back to the football. It's a double team takedown that Mark Manning smiles about. They're going to lose their mind. They're going to absolutely lose their mind.
Bruntz, what do you make of the narrative that good teams don't let bad officiating affect them? What's your take on that narrative? Because you see that get floated around.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's some truth to it. You talk about everything that Nebraska did right in that game against USC, and they still lost. I mean, it kind of defies explanation, but. I think it's just kind of indicative of the larger issue that's kind of out there in college football right now, where I think sometimes now that you have instant replay, and that's always the replay piece of it seems to be affecting a lot of, how the game is officiated. And, we'll just let replay get it right, or we'll let replay really, kind of play things out. But I agree. I think there is some truth to that. I mean, if you go out and handle your business and don't let the officials be a problem, I think there's some truth to that. But when you're a team like Nebraska, where the margin for error is so thin, almost possession to possession, it's hard enough playing against 11 people on the other team, and then you factor in the Zebras too. That makes it pretty tough.
Well, and the other part, too, is you get the ball in the 16. Don't be lining up for a field goal.
Right.
It's two-way street.
The referees are not playing defense on that possession.
No. Bruntz, 90 seconds. Nebraska-Creighton Friday. Huskers trying to rebound from St. Mary's. What's your take on, what can Nebraska do to keep this thing close? Creighton looks like a machine once again.
Yeah, they've got some Ivan Drago in them. I mean, they just go and take care of business. Kalkbrenner's a tough matchup, I think, on the inside for Nebraska. I'm eager to see kind of how Nebraska's size on the perimeter matches up against what Creighton's going to try to do out there. I mean, I think their guards have a little bit of a speed advantage and quickness advantage. That'll be a little bit different than what Nebraska sees in the Big Ten, but you got to go on the road. You got to kind of pick things up, and this is, St. Mary's is a big opportunity for Nebraska. This is the second big opportunity for Nebraska to kind of get that win that, when it gets to be tournament time in March, that you're still going to have strongly on the resume. So we'll see how they do, but get that rotation dialed in a little bit more, and I think Nebraska can at least give them a good game.
As you talk about that rotation, Bruntz, about 30 seconds here, it feels like Bryce Williams, that number one scoring option. Who's number two in your eyes, or who needs to be number two?
Yeah, I mean, Burke, it feels like that's kind of where things are headed. But it's going to have to be a little bit more by committee this year, I think, than maybe what it was a year ago. So, they got to find that second and third option. And certainly, knocking down some shots from the outside wouldn't hurt. I mean, I think that's something this team needs to start doing in a hurry here, because it just feels at times like it's such a slog to get the ball in the bucket.
Michael Bruntz with us, Husker 24/7 Sports, at Michael Bruntz on Twitter. Bruntsy, thank you much, bud.
No problem, guys. Take care.
And now,
back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back into it, it's Hail Varsity. Chris Schmidt, Justice Rhodey, and Papa Sirles with us on a Tuesday to gear up for Nebraska, Wisconsin. Touch on USC and Nebraska. Sirles, how are we?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Got to spend the week in a deer stand, which is always nice. Didn't shoot anything, but always good to just be outside and enjoy some crazily abnormally warm weather, and listen to old Greggy Sharp on the call was always fun, but which was a better outcome.
Yeah, what happens first? Nebraska gets bowl eligible, or Sirles gets Bambi's dad?
I sure hope it's Sirles gets Bambi's dad. I'd love to shoot something before Saturday, so that'd be greatly
Didn't sound
ideal.
so good. It didn't sound so good.
I know it didn't sound good. But I'm hoping something dies between the blood makes the grass grow. So we need to get some stuff going here.
Sirles, instead of the live chicken or Jobu's rum, he's going to get a bag of deer for
That's the plan.
Nebraska football to get bowl eligible. I love it.
I will sacrifice a buck to the football gods for us to beat Wisconsin with an offensive coordinator that's never called games before.
You know, I mean, it's shaping up all right. I mean, listen, you've got Wisconsin, and Vogue's titled the Wisconsin offense a dairy raid instead of air raid, but they've dumped all that expired milk out. Iowa lost their dude quarterback who actually helped their offense go. So it's shaping up for severe heartbreak.
Yeah, at this point, I'm not banking on anything. You know, I thought we had a great chance going into USC. They were kind of figuring their stuff out, moving on from their quarterback. They put this quarterback in. Dude looks like Lamar Jackson at times, and you're like, golly, man, what's going on? But I've said this on the show 100 times. I hate Wisconsin. I always have. I always will. They're my least favorite team in the Big Ten over Iowa and all that stuff, mostly because I'm slightly jaded with the 70-35 game that I played in, but also because I had one of my favorite games of all time in Memorial Stadium, wearing those crazy-looking cleats you see behind me here, when we beat them at home in 2012. 12? Right, 2012, and so I have a lot of fond memories of playing against those guys. You know, we had big Chris Borland and Taylor and Monty Ball and Melvin Gordon, and I mean, I just remember those clashes that we had against those guys. They were fun games.
Well, you guys got it done in the ugly uniform game, and that's the one and only time it's gotten done. It's going on 10 meetings with that. But when we look at what happened in SoCal, are you encouraged by Holgorsen, what you saw on the offensive side?
It's hard to say yes when we only scored 13 points. You know, it's really hard for me to look at that performance and go, wow, we're back. When in reality, we scored one touchdown. Right? We scored one touchdown. We moved the ball. We were a little bit more balanced, in my opinion, as far as the pass run options we went there. But it also isn't fair for me to sit here and think that in a matter of 10 days he was going to be able to come in with the scythe and just chop heads off as he went down the hall and reinvent the wheel and go out there and, hey, we have a new offense put in. You know, that's not a realistic thing to think about. But what I'm putting my cap on and looking at is going, okay, what are we building for 2025? What are we building? And him being named offensive coordinator makes making a bowl game even that much more important, not just from going to a bowl game, but from the development and the practices that you're going to get to have between the months of November and December, whenever the bowl game is. Because I'll tell you this, as a young player, you grow so much more in those bowl game practices than even you do in spring ball.
Jeremiah Sirles with us, Hail Varsity Radio. It is, and that's what Matt Rule is, and he's embraced. He makes no bones about wanting to be a developmental program, because it's going to be a pretty flush portal this upcoming season with the roster limitations, presumably. He talked about that at his presser on Monday, but I want to get your thoughts on Dillon. I agree that the run game looked better. Hope they stick with it a little bit more because the O-line was moving people. Mm-hmm. But is it just me, or do you think Dillon looks a little gun-shy?
He's hurt. He's hurt. You can tell he's not fully 100%. And anytime that you're a quarterback, and a young quarterback specifically, and you've been hit a lot, he's been hit a lot this year, it rattles you. I mean, I've seen it happen to guys like Kirk Cousins in the NFL. These dudes do not like getting hit, because what happens is things speed up. Things speed up from the second they get the snap. And early in the year, Dylan was getting the snap and his eyes were downfield. And where's my first read? How am I looking off the safety? Where am I getting the ball to get the snap? Okay, who's the rush coming from? Where do I have to avoid? Man, I really don't want to get hit on my backside this time, or I really don't want to take this hit. So his eyes are actually looking at the rush first before getting his eyes downfield. And then things get sped up. Things are late. Balls are inaccurate, and he's still getting hit, right? That for me is, I don't think it's as much of a gun shy by him as much as he's just gotten beat up. And he's a young kid that hasn't had a full year to develop in a weight room, right? A year ago, he was throwing under Friday Night Lights in front of a home crowd of mostly parents, right? And now you're asking him to go out against Ohio State and to go out against Illinois, to go out of USC and be the dude. That's hard enough as it is, not getting beat up behind you and getting beat up a lot. So I don't put a lot on 15's shoulders right now, because you asked him to do a lot and he did, until he started getting hurt and injured a little bit and dinged up. It's hard for me to put a lot of blame on him.
So that being said, if he's hurt, maybe even injured, ankle, shoulder, we don't know, but we suspect something, and he's still being a warrior, good on him. Do you lean more? Do you look at the Haarberg option for more than 7.5 yards a carry?
I think you have to, mostly from a longevity standpoint. That kid's our future, right? Make no mistake about it. Dylan Raiola is the future of the Nebraska quarterback position. He's the face of the Nebraska Cornhusker franchise right now. He's going to be the guy you want out there recruiting. He's going to be the guy that you think is going to make this thing go. Let's make sure he stays healthy. Now, it then puts a conundrum of, but we need to win football games, right? And so it's this tug of war back and forth of what's best for the player, what's best for the program, what is the middle ground. And the middle ground usually falls upon asking the player, are you ready? Can you do this? And he's ultimately the one that has to make that decision. I've not once met a great competitor that's never said yes to that, besides like, hey, my arm's hanging off here, right? So I would really anticipate that if he feels like he's healthy enough to go out there, he's going to go. And then it's going to be the coach's job to say, hey, we think Haarberg as a healthy person gives us a better chance to win right now than you as a 80% or 85% or whatever percentage you want to put on it.
Sirles, you touched on it a little bit with this Nebraska-Wisconsin dynamic, right? There's been some great matchups over the years. This is another one where it's just really hard to predict, right? Wisconsin coming in, they dump Phil Longo. They say, hit the road, here's your bag of money. And then you have Nebraska, who brought in Dana Holgorsen 10 days ago. He called plays out on the West Coast. So how do you see this kind of shaping up from an offensive standpoint for both sides? Do you think this is going to be more of a defensive battle, or do you think that, surprise, surprise, we're going to see 21 points from both sides and it's just whoever stops who first?
I'd be shocked if this became a shootout. I think with SC, I anticipated a little bit of a shootout because their defense wasn't very good, but their offense, you input running quarterback and the playbook can kind of expand a little bit on you, which I think happened to us with Tony White a few times. But I look at Wisconsin's offense under Luke Fickell, and it's just not good. It really isn't. And if I have to put my trust in something, it's going to be Tony White and Ty Robinson and Tommy Hill and Bullock and those guys to go out there and put a statement and shove it right up them. But you flip it on the other side, I don't know what to expect from this offense. I really don't anymore. When they roll out there on a Saturday afternoon, I'm going, okay, surprise me, wow me. Like, is it going to be something fun, or am I going to be the guy of the meme, right, with a stick? Like, do something, right? It's something in between there. And I mean, it's an unprecedented thing to call a guy up as an offensive coordinator that was literally sitting on the couch 2 weeks ago and then have him call plays. So anything's up in the air for this Husker offense.
Sirles, what did you see that worked against the Nebraska defense? I mean, USC's got elite talent, right? Yeah. They are unreal. But Rule touched on just that you have an experienced secondary that didn't make plays and had busts that shouldn't happen in their career at this point. And then you saw Woody Marks go off. I mean, he's a hell of a back, but Nebraska didn't really either make the play at the line or at the second level or out-schemed. I think it was just SC ran the same damn run play time and time again for about 8 on first down, and Nebraska had no answer.
Yeah, whenever you're going into a game plan, I've heard every coach say it, you got to make them one-dimensional. You can't let them do everything. And USC could do anything. They could throw it and they could run it. And so as a defensive coordinator, when you have a team that is everything's on the table, it's really hard to game plan against that in real time because you're going, am I calling a play right now to stop the run? Am I calling a play right now to stop the pass? I don't know because we haven't been able to do either. And, yeah, the defensive backs, man, really discouraging to watch those plays where you're going, this is interception. Like, this dude lofted this thing up here, and 3 different times we just misjudged it, right? Just misjudged the jump, or we got our hips turned around and we're backpedaling instead of running and then going up and elevating. And from a veteran secondary with guys like Tommy Hill, who just got a Senior Bowl invite, and guys like Malcolm Hartzog, who I've watched a lot, and Buford Jr. and Deshaun Singleton, guys that you have a lot of trust in, that can't happen. It just can't. When you play a 3-3-5 and you've got 5 DBs on the field, listen, you know me, I don't love DBs. They are what they are. But when you have 5 of them out there at times, you expect a lot out of those guys. And so I think with just the ability to not stop the run and then also not be able to cover deep, Tony White was in a really tough place on what scheme he wanted to call.
Jeremiah Sirles with us, and, of course, agent and broadcaster and podcaster. Sirles, one of the last times we got to talk before you became a professional was that Tuesday media session. I remember standing on a chair to get eye to eye with you for that interview. It was against Iowa. It was the infamous Bo hat waving. How would Bo have handled the calls that have gone against Nebraska this year?
I think we'd have at least a dozen more personal foul penalties, probably at least 1 ejection.
How would he have taken the Banks no call?
The Banks no call, I think it would have been the Ohio State game he would have gotten ejected from.
Okay.
No, the amount of the spotting error, he would have went berserk. I mean, that would have been one where I don't care how strong Dobson was, the get back coach ain't keeping him back from that one. But yeah, I mean, the officiating this year has just been atrocious. It's been so bad, and I tip my hat to Matt Rule because I would not keep my lid on as well as he has.
Do you believe in some sinister plot against that red end?
I don't, unfortunately. You look across the all landscape of football, college and the NFL, it's been bad this year. I mean, I'm watching Sam Darnold get his face ripped off on national television, and the refs are just standing there. They're like, I didn't see anything. Right? I mean, even the Bears game yesterday against the Packers, they have 2 illegal things that happen on that game-winning kick. They run clean over the center, and then they have a D lineman that's pushing the back of the defensive lineman to block that kick. Both things are 15-yard fouls and an automatic first down. Nope, didn't get either of them. So refereeing is a tough job, but be better.
Be better. Sirles will run you down again. This was fun. Thanks for the time.
Absolutely, guys. Go Big Red.
Hail Varsity Radio is live. Now, back to Schmitty.
Schmitty's a great guy, but he don't have a brain.
And Elijah.
You want me to speak? When I point at you, yeah.
On Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you, it's Hail Varsity. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, Hail Varsity YouTube, Hail Varsity Radio Twitter. At HVarsity Radio, can email Chris at hailvarsity.com and search for us on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play with Hail Varsity Radio. We'll hear a little bit more from Dana Holgorsen. Road Show Thursday, Road Show Friday. Thursday, we are back at the Single Barrel, 4 to 6. Get your football weekend kicked off. And excited to be back there for a little whiskey and a little steak. Single Barrel, 9th and P, inside the Graduate in Lincoln. We are across the river, getting you ready for Nebraska Creighton on Friday. We are back at Ameristar Council Bluffs Casino, Amerisports Book and Bar. You want to bet Nebraska and Creighton, you know where to go. Cross that river, come find us at Ameristar Council Bluffs Casino, 4 to 6. And then noon to 2, the weekend edition of Hail Varsity gets you going at the Single Barrel in front of Nebraska, Wisconsin. Real Red Reaction follows about 6:30-ish or so, 6 to 6:30. That's the window for the post game, but pouring drinks out of joy or sorrow. Big Red fans with whatever happens on Saturday.
But let's start with Friday. We're going to be at the Ameristar. You know what the line is for Nebraska Creighton as it stands right now?
Creighton's got to be 12.5.
Ooh, Creighton's a 4.5 point favorite.
That's it?
3.5 some places.
Really?
Vegas sees this one as a close ball game on Friday night. And to be fair,
I don't see it, dude.
I haven't watched a ton of Creighton basketball this year. I've watched enough to know, like, outside Kalkbrenner, they're not the team they were last year. I mean, that might be an obvious statement.
They still got the giant in the paint, and I've seen enough Nebraska, quick judge, forgive me, but through four games, I don't like Nebraska's offense right now.
That's a fair take.
Don't love their offense. I don't like the turnovers, and I don't like the three-point shooting. Now, they can get better. They got to play their ass off, and I think they'll play hard. I'm not worried about that. We'll hear from Fred tomorrow. But, all right, you needed that. You had to have St. Mary's, okay? The only way you're going to get them to play you is at a neutral site, or you got to go there. They're constantly a 5 through 12 seed, right? I mean, pick a year. They're winning the West Coast Conference. They're in the tournament. They've got dudes. And they shot really well. You got to show up against Creighton, your home slate. We look at it, but what? You got Indiana and UCLA and Lincoln at PBA. And then you got some road possibilities to go steal, but you don't ever bank or bet on that. I quite frankly hate Nebraska's home Big Ten schedule. And there's no big dog that's coming non-conference. There's no Kansas. There's no Creighton. There's no pick somebody, right? I mean, you're at Michigan State December 7th, and you got UCLA coming to town. You're at Purdue. USC comes to Lincoln. Illinois is here. Ohio State. I think they got a pretty good win the other night. But other than that, I mean, you have about 8 swings at the plate. You just do, if you're Nebraska basketball. A little more from Dana Holgorsen. He was asked, and he answered, honestly, why take this gig now? Why take this gig and come to Lincoln? Here's Dana Holgorsen.
I was bored. Great deal of respect for Coach Rule. You know, we visited in December, and I didn't think it was fair to him, me, or the program to do it at that point. I was tired. I'd been through a lot and, just didn't have to do it at that point. And I didn't feel like I was ready to give it my all. I was very grateful to Sonny Dykes and TCU for being a consultant there, which kept me around the game. I was there for I think 3 weeks in camp, then went on vacation for about 2 weeks, came back, and I was always there. I was there for 2 weeks, and I was there for 2 games, and I didn't like being a part of the games because I wasn't a part of the games. All right, I was up in the head coach's suite for a game, and I was on the sidelines for a game, and I'm like, yeah, I don't like this part of it. If I don't have any control over it, I don't want to do it. So I would just help prep them in the beginning of the week, and then I'd go do something else. It was fun to kind of go do other things, but I was slated to go back to Fort Worth on Sunday night, and Coach Rule called, and I was like, yeah. I mean, he said, let's just come try to figure this out. I need your help. And so I was grateful to him for saying that I needed your help. And so I was like, I think a great deal of him, I think a great deal of this program. So I was excited to jump on it. Rules allow it now. In years past, rules wouldn't have allowed it. So, I just wanted to insert myself and try to help Coach Rule and try to help this football team and try to help this great program.
So that was Dana Holgorsen on the why. Eat Beef checks in. I've done a lot of sketchy things while I was bored, too. Good work. That was pretty good. A little bit more from Dana Holgorsen when it comes to input on the personnel.
Yeah, I give my opinion. I give my opinion. And Coach Rule has mentioned this, that, fresh set of eyes on things are good. And I totally 100% believe that. Position coaches get blinded by what they see sometimes based on a whole bunch of different things. And sometimes players, they come in and they get fresh set of eyes on it, and some opinions are different than others' opinions. That's what position coaches, they fall in love with specific people, and they don't want to give other people chances. That's every position coach across the country falls into that trap. I did too as an assistant. I'm constantly looking at it. I've voiced my opinion. I found one today. Not going to mention it until we go talk about it as a staff, but I found a young kid today that I think can help us play on Saturday. just keep your eyes open for that. But at the end of the day, it's about competition. If there's competition, then people play better. If there's not competition, then people relax. And, I think our job as coaches, especially in this situation right now, is I'll say, look, this is what I see. If you don't like it, then do something about it in practice, I
love that. Competition is king. You can talk about it, but he's going to make you live it. And I wonder who the mystery freshman will be.
Well, we talked about it. It can't be Carter Nelson because he can't be a mystery at this point in time. So I'm down to
mystery why he's not touching it more if he's such a matchup issue.
So I'm saying the top 2 candidates for me, a guy who was on the travel roster last week, Quinn Clark, number 1 choice out of Montana, under-recruited, big body wide receiver. Keelan Smith, also another one.
Mekhi Nelson.
Do you think he's going to help with? Okay, maybe.
We'll see. Okay. We'll see. Our friends.
That's your take? I mean, we heard big things out of Mekhi Nelson in fall camp.
Yeah.
I heard the coaching staff was very, very high on him, and we haven't seen him this year.
Well, and, Dana's input. I'm going to translate Dana for you. You don't need me to translate it, but pretty much he's not afraid to call BS out. If that's the wideouts, not blocking, called him out privately, called him out publicly. Running back coach and running backs, called him out privately, called him out publicly, and get it going, right? How about do we have time for pressure? We do not. Ugh. All right, a little bit more from Dana Holgorsen on the other side before we wind it down. Good stuff today. Tomorrow, Barry Alvarez. Barry's a little thin up top, but if there is any, he's pulling it out. Watching Wisconsin and probably watching Nebraska. 2 programs he loves. Evan Bland with us tomorrow. Mike Babcock with us, Mr. Husker Football. So loaded up for your midweek edition. And we'll wind down at Tuesday. Big thanks to Sirles. Always love getting caught up with Michael Bruntz and Mitch Sherman. Some more Dana Holgorsen on the way.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time, Hail Varsity, Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. Subscribe, Hail Varsity YouTube. And a reminder to get buckled up, hands on the wheel, eyes and focus straight ahead. The driver has one job to drive. This message from the NDOT Highway Safety Office. Dana Holgorsen very driven with his MO and how he is going to run the offense and what he's going to demand from the team the final 2 weeks. This is his response when asked if he feels pressure. You need 1, you'd like 2, you can't have 0. And here is Dana Holgorsen.
Yeah, there is pressure in coaching. I mean, anytime that you line up and you coach a game, there's pressure. I'm going to do. It's not going to change what I do. It's not going to change how I coach. It's not going to change the hours that we put in. It's not going to change my commitment to getting us ready to go practice tomorrow morning and Thursday morning and what we try to accomplish on. Pressure is something that I'm obviously used to. I mean, I've been a head coach for 14 years and, coaching for 32 years. You line up because of the competitive spirit that you have in you. If you give in to pressure, then you need to go do something else. And I had the opportunity to go do something else. And I'm sitting here trying to help Nebraska win. I know it's on everybody's mind. I know I get it. It's shocking to me that it's been that long since a program like this hasn't been to a bowl game. Doesn't make any sense to me, but it is where we're at. And we tried everything we could to win that game last week, and we had a chance still. And we're going to try everything that we can to win this game this week, and we'll have a chance still.
That Dana Holgorsen, and just flat out, yeah, dude, it's shocking that they are where they are. And, man, you're feeling it. If you're a Nebraska fan, you felt it for a while. And it's gotta get fixed, and it's obvious. But you can't have another one go down the drain, man, against Wisconsin like they have. Overtime, last second, field goal by Gaglione. I mean, just go through this reel. And they've been both sides of it. You either lost at the last second to rip your heart out, or they've absolutely pile-driven you to the tune of 408 with Mel 10 years ago. So it's time to stop, and you hope that there's a jump here in week 2 with the offense, the execution, the understanding, and I'm anxious to see Dana, get that headset back on and get the offense rolling. Think if you actually have some complimentary ball where the defense stops the run for a good portion of the game, a wounded team, a worse offense in Wisconsin, and you're at home, and here comes a quarterback that's going to have some confidence, and maybe you lean on a run game to help him out.
And again, something I've said a couple times today, I'm not expecting wholesale, macro-type shifts from Nebraska's offense in terms of production, but it's the little things. Can one block on the perimeter spring a run for 40 instead of 10, setting up your offense in the red zone? Can, can Dylan Raiola get the ball out quick? We say it again. Get a block on the outside for a guy coming across the middle, and boom, it's 40 yards. Like, it's the little things that with this Husker offense I think can be the difference on Saturday. I'm not expecting it to be wholly different, but I don't think you need it to be wholly different to go get a win if your defense goes out and performs.
Back at you tomorrow, 4 o'clock with Hail Varsity Radio. Little Fred Hoiberg tomorrow with what he has to say about Nebraska Creighton. Mike Babcock going to be with us. And, we'll check in with Evan Bland. Barry Alvarez will join us. Take care. Thanks for tuning in.